The Political Action Committee Democracy for America, they've launched $50,000 social media campaign aimed at ensuring that a progressive candidate wins the Iowa caucuses.
Joining us to detail exactly how that campaign is going and how they're feeling going into the caucus is Charles Chamberlain. He's chair of Democracy for America. Welcome, sir. Great to have you.
Thanks a lot. I'm glad to be here.
All right, so take us into the thinking behind this project.
Yeah, well, look, the reality is that we're facing an unprecedented event where we have the possibility for a transformational progressive leader to become the next president of the United States. It's a really exciting place for us to be in. But for that to work, we have to make sure that we win the nomination. And we're up against the powerful establishment and the candidates that they've got backed by the corporate media, backed by corporations, the only way we're going to do it is if we unite as progressives and make sure that we work together to defeat the corporate wing, defeat Joe Biden, defeat Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar, and Bloomberg.
So, Charles, tell us about, you're talking about strategic caucusing. Lay that out for the viewers, because we've tried to hammer it home is that there's a lot of dynamics in Iowa. Second choice matters as much as first. So what are you encouraging your supporters to do?
Yeah, that's right. So, in a caucus, you have to get to at least 15% in your caucus location. That's not like a statewide number. That's in the actual location. If you don't get to that 15%, then you automatically have to realign or you go home. And what we're saying is if you're a supporter of a candidate who gets less than 15%, then it's absolutely critical you don't go home. Make sure you move to one of the top two progressives so that we make sure that a progressive wins the caucus and progressives do as well as possible on election night. Nothing would be better than if these two candidates came in number one and number two on election night. And for that to happen, that means that if Andrew Yang in your caucus doesn't have 15%, then you're going to move to one of those two. Or if Amy Klobuchar doesn't have 15%, which is really, really possible in a lot of these different caucus locations. So That's the key.
Right. So are you reaching out to supporters of all the campaigns to try to encourage them to have a progressive second choice? Or are you just reaching out to the supporters of progressive candidates? And who do you consider progressive candidates in the race?
Yeah, we're reaching out to everybody. Our social media is targeted directly towards Iowa. We have 18 groups in our coalition, some of which have already endorsed Bernie, some of which have endorsed Warren. And then a number of us are neutral in the primary. Well, not necessarily neutral, but supporting both candidates, haven't made an endorsement. That would be DFA, because we're certainly not neutral. A supermajority of our membership supports either making Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren president. And who are the corporate candidates? Pretty much, we're looking at the top tier of Biden, Klobuchar, Bloomberg. Those are the candidates. They're supported by the corporate wing. They raise their money from corporate dollars and closed-door fundraisers, and they have the policies of the establishment, the status quo from 2016, 2008, you name it. It's all from the past, and it's not about moving America forward with the kind of vision and policies that we get from the top two progressives.
Charles, one thing I'm intrigued by, we saw yesterday, we covered on the show, Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard both kind of acknowledged that their supporters might go to Bernie in Iowa if they don't reach on the first alignment. Were you encouraged by that development?
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. I mean, that'd be great. And candidates that, as they're going into this caucus, realize that they're not likely to get to 15%. This is something that's common that they do. I mean, if you go back to 2008, Dennis Kucinich, for example, on the night before the caucus, basically said, go and caucus with Barack Obama. This is a really common thing. So I think it's great that both Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard have sort of signaled that they want to see their supporters consolidate behind Sanders when they don't have enough votes to hit viability in their caucus.
Got it.
And how much does that work? I mean, candidates can say whatever they want, staffers can make whatever deals that they want to make, but voters tend to have a mind of their own.
Yeah, well, and that's a good thing, right? I mean, we certainly don't want them to be told what to do by party bosses. Although, when we're talking about Iowa, we're talking about party bosses both with lowercase letters, right? Because it's just your local friends in many, many cases. But yeah, so look, how effective is it? Look, the most effective thing is how excited and enthusiastic you are for your candidates. And that's one of the reasons why we believe these two progressives are the best ones to be the Democratic nominee in the end. They have the enthusiasm. They have the excitement. you're not getting 20,000 people at a Joe Biden rally, but you are at a Bernie Sanders rally. You don't have people waiting 4.5 hours in line to get a selfie with Pete Buttigieg or Michael Bloomberg, but you are for Elizabeth Warren. And it's that enthusiasm, it's that excitement that carries the day in the election. It's going to be what makes the difference in the general. But it's definitely going to have an impact in the caucuses, because that's what's going to make it so that people stay around after round after round. So I think the number one thing is to make sure that if you support a different candidate, don't go home, move to one of the two major progressives so that we make sure that they come in the top two.
And what do you make of the fact that the progressive vote seems to have solidified, or more consolidated at least, behind Bernie Sanders in these waning days?
Yeah, I mean, that's what polling shows right now. I think we're going to actually see what happens on Tuesday. I think that anything can happen. I think it's really exciting to see Bernie Sanders at the top of the polls right now. I mean, he's a fantastic candidate. He's got a long track record of being a progressive champion. He's definitely somebody that we can trust, that as he goes into office would be somebody working hard to execute our agenda. But one of the things that I think is really important for people to remember is that, one of these two is going to still end up being in the Senate at the end of this. If we actually don't succeed, they're both going to be in the Senate. So making sure that we're supportive of all the progressives that are in this race, and that we're not attacking our own is really important, because President Sanders or President Warren is going to need Senator Sanders or Senator Warren to make sure that they can actually pass their agenda in the end. And that's the best situation we could be in.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting to hear about your efforts. Thank you so much, Charles.
Thanks, Charles.
Hey, you bet. Thanks for having me on. Let's hope we have a really big day on Tuesday.
My pleasure.
Next on Rising, Bernie Sanders. He's unveiled a new campaign ad, starkly contrasting his record on Social Security with Trump's, and Joe Biden. Huffington Post reporter Daniel Marins. He explains more. That's next.